Mackie here, and welcome everyone to the CBLOL Split 1 Playoffs preview. Now, as you all know, the start of the playoffs will begin on Saturday, and this will run through all the way until the start of June. This is going to go through all of May till June, and the winner of this CBLOL Split 1 will qualify to not only the EWC along with Furia, with Furia, but also qualified to the midseason invitational in Korea. Now, this little preview is not going to be as statistically based or kind of like talking to all the games and the champion pools, all kind of stuff. This is like a simple little rundown of all the six teams that will be qualifying for this playoffs to determine which teams will be playing for a spot at MSI. So without further ado, it is time for us to start with the very first team that are in the playoffs, which is the sixth seed, Loud. Yeah, Loud. I mean, the finalists from the CBLOL Cup being in sixth place, it's something unusual for them. But here they are, 3-4 in the series scores, 9-8 in game score with a sixth place standings. Now, there's going to be some arguments for and there going to be some arguments against them. Why do I believe that Loud could win this tournament, and why do I don't believe that Loud cannot win? This is going to be the same thing for all the teams in this tournament. So the argument for Loud to win this tournament is Young Jay could be a difference maker for the team. I think Young Jay has been so instrumental for this Loud team in some of the games. And by the way, I decided to use my own little statistical anomaly. It is called the 3 stars in the Timu system, which is pretty much simply like I use them to find out which is the best star player and also which one are the worst. And throughout my research and throughout all the data that I accumulate, Young Jay has become one of the best players in Loud. Now, Bird and Unzed has been kind of flip flopping each other. Zyno was supposed to be like one of my top players that I supposed to be good at. It's just not doing good right now. So you could say that Young Jay has been pretty much the best player on this Loud team that can actually carry them to a victory. He has been solid. He has been brilliant with some of the statistics being like top 2 or 3 in most of the jungle statistics. So I think Young Jay could be absolutely huge for this team. Now, unfortunately for them, they are not a great red side team. They're 1-4 in red side after playing only 5 games. Now, yes, I know Fearless Draft and side selection is a little bit different, but when you only play 5 games with a 1-4 record and you don't know some of the counter matchups when you face off against your Lost and your Furious and your Red Cannons, it's gonna be a really big problem. So the fact that they don't play much red side games could be a spell for Doom in terms of draft and all that stuff. And the Unzed versus Redbird support could hurt the team. You have one guy who has been a veteran stalwart for a team versus let's just call it a young and upcoming player, of course, who just bring in from the the second tier of the CBLOL standings or the second tier of the region. And you kind of created this a little bit of a dynamic, of course, of seeing which teams will be competing. That's almost feel like the same thing with the whole Envy situation, in which some bad circumstances happened to Loud. Envy came in and the team clicked and they won the whole tournament. That was before the finals, of course. And I did not expect Loud to even win that tournament, let alone win that finals against a really good Furia team, of course, and they did it. Now we're the same circumstances in terms of the purport, and I believe this could hurt them even more because if you decide to swap the players, of course, it will create fractures within the team synergy. The coordination will be a little bit different, and also champions pool because Unzed is pretty much an enchanter support. We have seen a lot of enchanter supports. Your Namis, your Seraphines, your Bards, of course. And Redbird is kind of like a little bit of enchanters, but mostly engaged supports. So it depends on how this team will be playing in the draft, of course. And that could be good, of course, being not showing their hands, switching up, create the strategy, confusing opponents. It can also hurt them in the dynamic run because you know, what if they lost another game and then you have to bring in Redbird and one Eevee lost another game and that might spell confidence, like not lack of confidence for this team and it could doom them, of course. So I believe that this Loud team is going to be pretty much on edge throughout these entire tournament with the whole support thing. So as Young Jay goes, so the entire team. I do say that. Next up is Fluxio W7M. Fifth place in the standings, 4-3 with a series score, 9-7 in the game score. The argument for their team is that their mid-late game is it's solid as a rock. And by the way, some of the stats that I put up is from Oracle Elixir, by the way. So they're third in the mid-late game, which is pretty good to showcase that their games, which is like 25 to 30 to 35 minutes or even longer, is going to be really good with all the scaling competition that they have, and it could actually stall and it could just make decisive team fights, which is going to be really really huge for this team. And if that happens, and sorry, I'm just looking at my phone trying to turn off the do not disturb. There you go, so I can just focus. Oh, okay. Sorry, where was I? If Fluxio W7 just drag these teams into the mid lane game, I think they have a chance. Their third place ranking showcase that they are absolutely good at this kind of game. Now, their dragon control is also the best in the league with a 61% dragon rate. So they like to get dragon stacking early, play for late game team fights, play to trying to make sure if they get a goal lead, like a 1 to 2K goal lead, and they still have like a dragon control, like 2 to 3 dragons they have, that will set them up for like team fighting success, which Cody, by the way, in their mid laner, is actually excelled on. He has been really, really good. Now I will show you something. This is probably my little notebook that I have. This is a notebook, and I look at it and said that Cody has been the best player on this team. Yes. So Cody has been the best player on the team based on my statistics about first start of the series and Pog game, which is, by the way, he had 5 Player of the Game awards, of course. And by the way, this is not just, you know, best player of the series. This is the best player on a certain game. By the way, they're all best of threes. And he's been pretty good against Leviton and Loud and Fury, of course, and 3 of those 4 games. So we've seen playing well. The other one is Peach and Bio, of course, with Curti on the top. But Cody has been the absolute stalwart of that entire team. And I think it's going to be a major, major difference to see, you know, can Fluxio be good without Cody? Because I think the weakness for this team, and by the way, if you look at the argument against, is where Cody goes, so does a team. If Cody falls off, I don't think WXM7 has some other carries to go with. Like, yeah, you can say that Bao could be good, but I'm not sure that he's a great carry, of course. Maybe the top laner is pretty good, but I'm not sure he's really good at that. So it's pretty much all eyes on the mid lane. And unfortunately for them, everything else other than the mid lane game has been garbage. The early games has not been great. The Baron has not been great. Their, First Blood's not been great. Tower's not been great. This is a team that it feels like if they don't feel like even within the first 20 to 30 minutes, they are going to get absolutely clapped. Absolutely clapped in the early games within the first 15 minutes. So it's up to W7M to like drag this game into the mid late game and hopefully pray for the best. So yeah, it is what it is. Next up is Los, or Los Grandes for short. They're fourth in the standings, 4-3 series score, 99 in game score. The argument for is that Dudu, by the way, one of the most hyped players from the tier 2 scene, and come up and play spectacularly in the first part of the year. He and Zest are the carriers in the team. And also their early game has been pretty good. They have been a dominant early game team, one of the top 3 early game teams based on statistics that I've ever seen. And couple that with a brilliance of Dudu and Zest, they are dynamic. They are absolutely dynamic for them. Now, unfortunately, the argument against is that their mid lane game could be an issue in which if the game can carry on within like the 30-35 minute park, they are not great when it comes to closing out games. If they have a lead and they probably have a slight lead, their chances of trying to win the game within that period of time is not good. Now, it depends on like which team do they catch the throws to. And I believe it could be like, maybe there's opponents allowed, or maybe there's, Fluxio or something. It's gonna be dependent on like how does Los's mid late game going to be stack up against the rest of them. And it's not looking great. It's not looking great right now. And Dono has not been spectacular like his life spent, and it could hurt them. Now, Dodo was coming in like the breath of fresh air. Brilliant, aggressive, all this kind of stuff. He has been like the best thing that ever happened to this Lost team in a long time. But of course, we all know the sophomore slump. And he has been struggling. He has not been great. He has not been confident in most of the games, of course. And it could come back to bite them. It could come back to bite them in the rear. So, I think you can say that Dodo has been good this season, but he has not been overly incredible. As you know, teams will figure him out, and his champion pool has been not been great, and his confidence has not been great as well. So if he goes, and like him and Zest are like the two linchpins, if he goes, maybe Zest could carry the game. But that would be too much responsibility on the shoulders of a really promising player. So I think for Laws, it's kind of like, they gotta need like all hands on deck for the entire team, which is pretty much tough for them to do. Into third place is Vivo Kia and Stars. Third in the standings, 4-3 series score with a 9-7 game score. Now they have the best mid late game team in the CBLOL, and Seo is the main man. Now, Seo, by the way, if you look, by the way, I'm looking at the stats again, and VVKS has been unbelievably brilliant. He had the first start of the series with an amazing game, of course. Then, of course, in the same game, he got the first star and sweeping both games as one brilliance with Callista and Aphelios. So he's good with all the champion pools and all kind of stuff. And we know about AD carries. They are the most brilliant players or the brilliant roles in all of League of Legends. If that AD carry goes, so the entire team. And speaking of the entire team, the argument against is pretty much like their entire team other than Seo. And Windsor is also a good player, of course. Kai Wing is also good, of course. And CL is a good coach. So I'm not going to say that Vivo Kids are a bad team. It's just that I'm not sure that this team, other than Seo, could be good enough. Now, I will be proven wrong. I'll be proven wrong. But it's going to be a pretty tall task for this team. And also, their early game is not as great, and it could hurt them. So, if they get blasted in the early game, it is not going to be good as them. They got the best mid lane game of the team. They need to drag these teams into the mud and hopefully pray for some scaliness to come through. Otherwise, their early game is going to be absolutely reckoning for them. Furia is our next team. 5-2 in series record, 11-7 in the game record. Now for the argument. 4 AU is the best ADC in the CBLOL, and that is based on statistics and his performances throughout the entire season. Top 3 in some of the most important categories, which is like, goal control, first, Drake, percentage, all these other stuff. All these other stuff. These are a top 3 team, which showcase how really good this team is. Only team to make Red Cannons bleed, which is, by the way, their first and only. They give Red Cannons their only loss of the season, which is going to make a lot of Red Cannons fans feels like, ooh, shiver me timbers or something. Because I think if Fiora can do it, I think Fiora could be the team that might beat them. And Tatu, who's by the way one of my favorite players, is not a bad jungler. He's a really good jungler. We saw him in the America's Cup. We saw him in the finals. He has been absolutely pretty good. Now, unfortunately, the argument against is just the slow series most of the time in which they were down 1-0 and then come back and roar as alive and trying to, get up and win this series. Now, that'll be good enough in like a regular season best of 3, but in best of 5s, when you're getting tested most of the times, you're going to have, I don't know, gonna be climbing a mountain. And it's gonna be really hard to climb back to the mountain, of course. When you're down like a 0-2 or something. Once you go down 0-2 in a series like this, you can make reverse sweep, but it'll be really, really tough for you. The energy and the exhaustion while you pull it in, it's gonna be really tough. And the solo lanes has been struggling. Good and Toots has not been great in the top and mid lanes. And I think that'll be a problem for Furia, of course, in the latter stages of the playoffs. Of course, they are in by the way, the bye section of the playoffs. But it could come back to haunt them. And I think Google and Toots need to step up in order to make Tatu helpful enough in, in, in terms of making Tatu feel comfortable, and it makes IU feel comfortable as well. So it's going to be coming down to those solo laners that can make their team look good. And that's pretty much it. Finally, is Red Cannon's Kaluga. Top team in the standings, 6-1 series record with the only loss game to Furia and a 13-3 game record. Now, for the argument for it, Steps is the best jungler in CBLOL. He has been phenomenal throughout this entire season. I think I have him in most of my first and second stars throughout the entire week. And he has been the best player on this Red Cannons team and probably the best player in CBLOL right now. Better than pretty much like Tutu in most cases. And of course, they are the best stats in the regular season: first place and second place, third place in some of the categories. And the loss to Fear could liberate them. So going into the Fear matchup, everybody was thinking Red Cannons will go undefeated, they will dominate the league, and it'll go in and they'll go in and just feel like, hey, we're gonna go in undefeated and just dominate. That Furia loss just pretty much helped them. It may hurt them, but it'll help them, of course, because they don't have to worry about undefeated streak. They don't have to worry about, oh, we just lost. And then that makes them upset, of course, not being undefeated. But it could help them just feel like, okay, what can we do to regroup? What can we do to make sure we don't have another chance at then? And it's better to have your mount being punched later on or during the regular season than being punched in the mount later in the season when you're undefeated, when you don't get no exposure. And yeah, I feel like right now, if you're Red Cannons, you lost to Furia, but I feel like this might be good for them. This might be good in the long run. Unfortunately, the argument against it could be like a seeds of doubt. Like, what if you're facing Furia again? Or what if you're facing another team that might look at what Furia doing and just execute the same plans to Red Cannons? Could happen. Could happen. And finally, the mid game is pretty much not great. It is not as strong, of course, as many people said. And that could be a problem for the course. I think their one and only losses coming in the mid late game, of course. So that means their early game has been great. Their mid late game has not been great. And that could be problematic because if some of the teams would have dragged them in the mud, especially like your loud game teams and your VVK teams, if they drag you to the mud, holy cow, I'm not sure they have a chance. I'm not sure they have a chance, Raikens, to do anything but. So that concludes all the teams that I preview, of course, and these are my rankings. Rankings is our first, Furious second, VVKS third, Lost fourth, Loud fifth, W7FX sixth. And that concludes, of course, this previewing of the teams. This will be the first of many previews I'll do, of course, LCS, LEC, LCP, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that concludes it. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're closer to 100 subscribers on this channel, so please make sure you keep doing all the videos, share some love and all kinds of stuff. Comment down if you're feeling with to comment down. Like, I can comment, I can like, and all kind of stuff. So anyways, thank you all for watching. Make sure you have a good day, and I will see you all later.